All right. Hey, welcome everyone to another XAFer community stand-up. Today we're gonna be actually covering how to create an XAF app from scratch. I think that most of the time we say once and again SAF app are regular .NET apps, but we'll see it today. We'll see that definitely it's just a standard .NET application. It's just a standard WinForms application, Blazor application, and so on. So, as always, thank you for joining in. We do this once a month, and we cover everything that is happening in the world of SAF, in the world of DevExpress, any personal projects that we have. Um, we for the I think that for one of the first time in like forever, we missed December, but we have been really busy, and there have been a lot of great things going on with AI and with SAF and the new year. So we, as always, will make it up with probably two meetups in February. But let me just mute. Of course, if you are always welcome to mute yourself and ask questions, interact. I always like to have this type of community events to be interactive, but if you are not, uh, actually, if you just put yourself on mute. As always, join our Facebook group. We are already 3,700 members, 3,700 members, so we're growing, still growing. Um, our meetup, we do once a month, or Suffer Community Stand-Up. LinkedIn joins the LinkedIn SAF group. Follow Twitter, where you get all the latest advance and all the latest features and all the latest news of DevExpress. And of course, follow the DevExpress blog and so on. Today we'll be doing a XAF app from scratch, and we'll also be talking about what 24.2 brought along. That is a lot of goodies. So, with that being said, Hoch, as always, just a quick 30-second introduction of yourself, and we'll jump right on it.
Yeah, well, like my name is Jocho Ojeda. I work for Bit Frameworks and Sari. We do SAF, XPO, and now AI 24/7. We have a new tool. Bye Maui for a little bit. Let's see you like later in the year. That's it. It's like we work with Javier. We handle the community in English and Spanish. So if you have any doubt about .NET, SAF, XPO, AI, Entity Framework also, just send us a message in the Facebook group.
Yeah. As always, feel free to ask questions on the chat or even unmute yourself and let us know what you're thinking. And I thought it was going to be really cool, Hoche, to actually follow this blog post from 2012 about how to create a SAF application from scratch. Of course, we are used to the wizard, we are used to the templates, but I think that architecture-wise, it makes a lot of sense to at least once in your lifetime do a SAF app from scratch and see all the steps that are involved. And then you see there are nothing else than regular .NET apps. So let's follow these steps live. Let's see how that goes, and then we'll go from there. So, Jose, let's start with creating a new project. And we'll do a completely new project, meaning that it will be an empty project. So we're gonna call it my SAF application or my SAF app. I will want like completely blank. We're gonna click create. Then we're going to take this app and we're gonna make it a Windows application. And if we follow the blog post, it will ask us to actually add reference to the Express app. Look at this 12.1 and DLLs and Express app Win, Express app XPO system, and so on. So we're gonna do a better thing. We're going to, and let's add the node feed. We're gonna select the DevExpress Express app .win.org. So this one, if we install it, you will see that it will have everything we need to build a XAF app reference-wise. So you see they have the Express data, you have charts, you have all the DLLs that we need, Express app, and also you have the module. So just with that one, you should have everything you need. If you don't want to, of course, overwhelm your application with a lot of references that you might not use, you can just uh, add the ones that you did right now that are Express app, Win, and so on. Good thing and interesting enough, in this Dev Express, let's see if we see it here, already come with the XPO version, Hoche. So the Win all doesn't have entity framework. So I will approve of that. All right, you see, it's adding all those libraries. Let's give it a second. And now let's add a program CS. New class, program.cs. And let's come back here and we are our main method. That's where we want to start coding our application. And actually, let's copy even the class declaration. So here we go. We got our first steps. Now, after we do this, one thing that we need to add is our SAF application that inherits from the Wing application. So the class that comes from the DevExpress app DLL, and that's the one who comes with a lot of methods already that and a lot of functionality that that you need to get your application running. And let's add a new class. And let's copy this code and let's review. So basically right here, let's add the reference to that we need. And we need another one, system data, and that's it. So if you see here, we are inheriting from Wing application and we're creating our default object space provider that it will be the XPO object space provider, and we're handling the data version mismatch event. So it creates the database and updates the database and so on. So with that change, let's go to our main method and let's actually instantiate this from here and instantiate our name of the application or connection string, and let's start let me just grab our local DB server, paste it here. So without doing anything else, we should be able to run it and have a blank app starting to take place. So this is a good thing because that way you know, hey, without designers, how to create a controller, how to create a module, how to add a module to the application, how the application is getting instantiated. So let's give it a second. It should be creating the database. All right. You see here, completely blank app, but we're already starting to get something. You have even the model already. Here you go. Now, let's stop here and let's go to the next step. So for now, we don't have nothing else. We don't have a business object or anything, but we can start adding more modules. So what does that mean? Let's add an extra project. Same thing, empty project. And we're gonna call it my XAF module. And we're gonna make it a class library. And we can put assembly information 10. So I want to mention this assembly version. We have to put the wildcard if we want to like get automatically creation of the new fields, new class, and everything so on that we need in our database because what our let me actually fix this. I don't like to. Let's make the file to match the type. All right. So to get here, it will actually check the assembly number and see that, okay, it doesn't match, so we need to run the updater and so on. So we already have our module. Now let's create a module class. Let's add another class. And let's create a module class that inherit from module base. Right. So we haven't added any Nugget package to the module class, to the module class library. So we need to come here. And right here, we're not gonna add the wing all because that will be just like the agnostic project. So we're gonna add just the Dev Express app. Right. And we should also add the persistent implementation for XPO because we're gonna create. Right. Now if we go to model base, we should be able to add our reference. Now let's change also the name type to my file to my site. All right. Now we should add a reference to that project. And we can actually come here to our program. And before the startup, we're gonna add our new module that we just created. So let's do that right now. All right. Again, without doing anything else, if we load, okay, let me see, we have an error. Okay, so let's say, and actually I'm gonna do it. Let's just come here, assembly information, let's make this 0 and leave it like that. That should compile and let's run. And then we will fix that. So now, if we go to tools now, edit model, and we go to loaded models, you see that right here we have our module that we just created from the my XAF module, the version number, and we know that we see that we have the system module and the system with the first module that comes from the Wing application that we inherit or my SAF application class. So we are already seeing that we are loading the modules that we just created. Of course, there is no mod functionality there, but that's what everything else comes in place. So let's now add a business class. Let's add and actually let's keep doing the same thing in class. And this will be public contact heading from base object and let's ask Rush to generate our constructor and let's also create a name property and an email property. Right? Let's rename file to message type. All right. So now, if we run it now, it should fail. It should give us an error about that actually the contact is not even here. So I think that let's put the file property, the file class option, and let's run. So if you see, it's telling me, hey, the contact table is not created. So we're gonna see it here in the model, but if we click on it, say, hey, your schema needs to be updated. So if we go actually to our instance and we should find, see, press my XAF application, only have module info and XP object type, doesn't have the contacts table. So for that one is where we were mentioning, if we actually come to our XAF application, put a breakpoint here on the updater, run again, it's not even going through that one. So if we go to our XAF module and then change to our wildcard, so actual increment, and it detect. But now if we compile, because in the new version of Visual Studio and so on, it gives you this error about determinism. What we have to do is just basically load the project, go to deterministic, make it false, reload. And now if we compile this one, that should be good to go. If we run it, it should stop in the updater. It should create my table, and I should be able to actually create a new contact name and email and so on. So we are seeing that the XAF app is starting to actually take shape. So let's actually add an updater. Yes, keep going. Right here we create a class. We can actually put it, actually, let's make it prettier, an image name. Tag image name. And let's move to an updater to supply initial data. So let's take this code and we can. On templates today, everything will be class by class. We're gonna come here. Basically, we're inheriting from the model updater and the override the after update schema, and we know this by hand. We just create new objects. I want to mention that then I type to my file and always right. So I want to mention that by reflection, it gets pick up the updater and is able to run it. So if we run our application run now, stopping the updater, and we should have two records, Jen Smith and John Smith with the two emails. Let's continue and then let's add a new module. Let's add reporting. So of course, you can always override the get module updaters and you pass your updaters manually. If not, it's picking it up by reflection. So this is one that I like a lot because we haven't done nothing else and because we are already have our reporting DLLs in place, we can just come to our program file. We can add a new module, and in this case, we're gonna do the report version 2. And if we run it now, voila, we should, let me take this breakpoint that we have our reports navigation, and that we can actually start and create a report on the contacts and so on. So right here, we create a report with those two contacts and so on in the business object that we have. So we're starting to add new functionality one by one. Now, what else are we missing? So I think that we're missing security. So let's do active directory. That will be the faster one. So 2 lines. Let's add here. Let's go to our program. And after, let's add 2 new lines. That it will be Active Directory authentication. and right here it will create the user automatically. And right here, of course, because this is a really old post from 2012, we need to change to permission policy user. User, and right here, we're gonna change to permission policy role. Now, just 2 lines. And if we run our app, so we're not seeing anything right now, but you see that it's authenticated with the user of my computer. And why we're not seeing anything? Because we have not created a role. So let's get to that. Let's go to, actually, let me bring this here. So I just copy that. Give me a second. Right. I'm just going to add on the updater how to create the default role, the admin role that is basically creating the permission policy role and adding the administrative to true. So just data, we're gonna add this here. Just okay, find if there is a role administrator. Of course, if we go to the database and go and check my XAF app, we will have in user the user that we just saw in our app, but if we go to role, we have nothing. So let's fix that. Let's create a role that it will be administrator. And if we run this now, it still is not going to show anything because the role is not associated with the user, but we can fix it real quick. So we now go to our table. We have our permission role administrator created. And then let's go to our many-to-many table. And let's this here so I have more space. I'm going to take this same ID so we don't. I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna select my role. I only have one role. I'm gonna select my user. I'm gonna take one ID. I'm gonna change something. And basically that should be, if I run it again, my user now have the administrator role. So it should be able to see everything. That's it. And you have already user role authentication with just 2 lines and just a record on the database. Let me continue. So, Jose, you seeing that right now 2 lines, you already have active directory authentication, you already have reports, you already have a module, you already have the model. So what are we missing here? I think that the only thing that we should miss is let's add a new item that is a text file for our model. And let's call it our model. I have to make sure that I get this right. Model right here. Model.designedDiff dot summary. So let's come back here. Model design. Let's just designed diff. Diff dot summary. Let me just double check. Model dot designer diff to F and an S. Right? If I did it correctly, it's gonna pick it up. We're gonna open with a XML text editor, and we're going to add just the application node. All right. So one thing that we need is to make it embedded resources. So if not, the changes are not gonna be applied. But just with that one, we should be able to open it. and modify our model exactly as we are used to. If we want to do it in our application project, instead of on the agnostic module, it's the same. The difference is the name is just model.xaml. But that's it. You have our complete model here. So one last thing should be create a controller. I think that we didn't do that, but we can add it here. You can actually, we are not using templates either. So let's add a new class. Un object view controller for list view, for contacts. We're going to basically send an email based on your current email application that you have. So the name type file to match type. I'm always getting those mixed up, and we can run. All right, you can see that right now we have this new send message action. So the controller is taking place where you click on it and it will try to open whatever you have in your computer and the default app. So we created actions, controller, model, security, added modules, added the application, added the program. So even the main method, the nugget. So everything completely from scratch. What do you think, Coach?
Well, I was thinking like we should have done this like 15 years ago.
I agree.
Yeah, this video. I mean, it will clarify a lot of things for a lot of people that there is this like misconception that SAF applications are some type of black box inside of .NET, but they are just normal .NET applications. But is sometimes it's hard to see when you see the templates and you see all the files. I guess it's overwhelming, especially because most people come from, I mean, at one moment, most people came from Windows Forms and they were used to one single project. So imagine that before it were like 5 projects when you do web forms and Windows forms. And then you see a lot of files. So it looks like overwhelming. But right now, step by step, it's so easy to understand which are the parts of SAF actually, and which are the main parts of SAF.
And one thing that I want to mention here, Oche, we used to do this with Prism. When we were doing Summon Inform with Prism, we used to take a blank project, add all the Prism libraries, create the container, do all the steps. So it makes sense because it gives you a bigger picture of what you are creating and all the architecture and all the steps related. If you see right here, we have all the basic steps. We have the authentication, the modules, the updater, the controllers, the action, and the model, and the provider for XPO for the database. So again, if you guys have any comment, we will do exactly the same for Blazor later on, but we wanted to start with the moving forward because I think that it is a good place to see everything from scratch to a SAF app already working. All right, so that will be the first part of our meetup. Our second part will be what's new on 24.2. 24.2 came with a lot of goodies, so let's review them. As always, let us know what is your preferred feature or what have you been testing. I know the tree list was a really requested one. So do you wanna get started with this, Jose?
Yeah. Actually, I will show some other things before, especially for the people who is buying new computers and they are in like or like ARM architecture. So there are a few things that I want to show, and also I will take some things from the list of what's new to show it, and you can take the rest.
Sounds
So
good.
let me start sharing my screen. And let's share this screen. Okay, so this one is kind of really important if you're using Apple Silicon and you're using a virtual machine, you're probably running Windows for ARM. So This is kind of an old problem. It happened long time ago in the transition between x86 and x64. The database driver for a lot of the database provider didn't exist for x64. So you were not able to run any CPU architecture, which is basically an intermediate architecture that will compile to the bytecode depending on your OS, right? So how does this affect you in general? Well, if you're running Windows for ARM, as I'm doing in this case, because I moved to a Microsoft Surface computer, I came from a gaming machine from MSI, but I wanted to have an NPU, so I moved to a Surface. So what will affect you, like in Visual Studio for your SAF and XPO application, and also this can apply to Entity Framework, is that in the list of CPU architectures in here, if you just install Visual Studio, for example, you will have everything will be any CPU, which means, okay, I will compile to this intermediate CPU architecture, and once I run in the real computer, I will compile to that architecture. So in my case, it will compile to ARM 64. And of course, I think only Postgres and SQL Server have at this moment native providers for those for that type of architecture. So what you need to do is kind of really simple. So you go to the configuration manager, and in here you will have only any CPU. You can add a new one. In my case, I'm going to add ARM 64, and you copy from any CPU. Once you do that, all your projects will have the selector for a CPU architecture. So in this case, we're going to select x64, and it's going to be forced to x64. Otherwise, you will not be able to connect to any of the database unless there is a ARM client for those. This seems kind of trivial, but I faced this on Apple Silicon and also now in this Windows computer. So it's not as trivial as we might think. Also, I believe that in the next few years, and actually this year, most of the computers that you will see in the market will be ARM CPU. So it's a good trick to have. Otherwise, you will be frustrated at the beginning. So with that, you will be able to connect to most of the databases because all of them have x64 native clients. So that's one of the little changes. So I wrote an article about it, and the article is here. I will put the link on the chat if you want to take a look. JP is asking for the CLI project setup. Okay, so the next one, maybe let's start for the easiest one. This is something that is related to the release of 24 2. It's not exactly for SAF, but you can use it in SAF. And it's that there are new application templates that are not depending on the infrastructure from Visual Studio. They depend on the CLI of .NET. So JP, I don't have the demo yet for the CLI, but the templates, they use the CLI underneath. So let's see the CLI right now. So if you have Visual Studio Code, and we make a video about this with Javier, you have an extension, one for Visual Studio Code and one for Visual Studio, the traditional one. So basically, they present the same type of application wizard. And it's a shame because it's not compiled for Apple Silicon. If you have an Apple computer that is Intel, it will work. If you have a Linux computer, it will also work, but not if you're running on top of Apple Silicon. So this year you will have to think about CPU architecture somehow. So once you install the extension, you have to close the folder. They say that you need to do that in the documentation. So you need to go here and then close folder, because if not, well, in this case, it closed uh, the studio. So if you have any folder open, you will not see the option. So you need to really close it, and then you have this new Dev Express project. So if you click here, and you can say hello SAF presenter, and it will prompt you where to save it. So desktop, new folder, hello SAF, and we'll save it here. And this is going to be showing in my other screen as always. So let me put it here really fast because otherwise it will, both of my monitors have different resolution. So if when I move it, it kind of stretch. So in here you have the wizard to select almost, I think it's every application from Developer Express in an agnostic way. You will see the same on Visual Studio. Now we'll show it a little bit later. So let's create a SAF application because after all, this is the SAF community standard. So here you can select the target framework and by um, net framework. So here is only like 8 and 9, the latest ones. You can, sorry, change the name of the instance of your SQL server. You can decide if you want XPO or Entity Framework. So we will select XPO, of course. Then which type of platform you want to target. So there is no web forms here anymore. So if you have a web forms application, maybe it's time to start thinking about moving. So let's create both of them. We want the test project. We want the web API and want it standalone. We want a standard login and password. And we don't want middle tier, so we'll do database, direct database access. And then we have the list of modules here. So let's do reports, pivot charts, KPI, a state machine that thanks Developer Express, you save it for me because it seems that I'm the only person who uses it. And that's it. Let's create a project. And there you go. Now it should be like populating here and doing all the magic of the CLI. Sometimes it takes some time to do it. So in the meantime, I will move to do it in regular Visual Studio. So for regular Visual Studio, it's kind of the same process. If you don't have installed the templates, you will see like a small image in the top, which say like, okay, you can add additional templates here. So here we have the template kit, and it finished after all. Remember that this is using the CLI. Sorry, I'm going to bring back the Visual Studio code because it was like loading on the other screen. So as you can see here, you have your SAF application with everything that you need. Of course, when you install that extension, you have to install some other extensions like the Solution Explorer, the C#, I think, toolkit. Otherwise, you won't be able to compile it. So let's say that you want to rebuild this one. See, now it's building. Now you can use most of the SAF things inside of VS Code. Of course, I love Visual Studio, but VS Code is sometimes nice to have if you're using, well, if you're using a Linux machine like I do. So let's go back to the normal Visual Studio. So here, after you install the templates, you will have the template kit option. So if you select this one, stuff from template kit, and it's going to be the same. And this template kit underneath, like under the hood, will use actually the CLI. That's what JP was talking about. So in here, I'm going to do something different, just a Blazor application. So you can see you have like, you can select the target framework, the render mode, and if you want to add some other things, let's create the project. And that's it. This is something that is new, and they are moving away from the Visual Studio infrastructure. Of course, both are going to be maintained, but I'm glad to see some modern ways to do the application, because for a moment it was the CLI was the new thing. And it's funny because we move away from the CLI like late 80s or 90s, and then it was what was in fashion to do, right? So it's like one day it will be like new. We always joke with Javier, like the new trend takes SQL queries. They support everything because we moved from ADO.NET to Entity Framework and then back to SQL queries. So see, here you have the application and it's using the CLI underneath. I think you can see the output here. No, you cannot see it. But okay, anyway, you kind of got the point. So now let's move to little soft things. So let's go here. And there are a few things that are new that I kind of like a lot. For example, the first one that I'm going to show is my English is not good for some reason today. Is this hide in UI? Before we used to use visible in detail view, visible in this view, and so on, right? Or in all cases, we use the attribute browsable um, false. The main problem is that the behavior of the browsable attribute have changed in time. I don't remember, but I remember that we were in one of the community stand-ups and we were figuring out why I cannot see this property when I do the IntelliSense. So since some versions forward, and this is Visual Studio, whatever is marked as browsable will not show in IntelliSense in autocomplete. Before it was possible to see it, even if it was browsable false, but after a while not. So it's really confusing sometimes. So it's better to use this new attribute hide in UI. And if you hide in all, you will not see it in the column chooser, you will not see it in the Windows customization from the detail form, and you will not see it in detail form, detail view, sorry, this view or reports or anything basically. And then you have the other permutations, which is you don't want it on the list view, you don't want it on the detail view, and so on and so forth. So I will run it on Windows first, and that kind of makes the point. And then some other things that are new. And okay, of course, it's always in the other screen. So if you go to the domain object one, this hidden property is not showing in here. Also is not showing in the detail view. And it's not showing the in here or in here. See, hidden is not here. So it's really nice attribute. It's like a little enhancement, but it can mean a lot actually. And I should not have closed the application. I wanted
So,
to show
so Jose,
something
let
else.
me ask you, this one is for the column chooser?
It's for the column chooser, actually. Yes, that's why I put it all of them so you can see it at once.
Nice.
Uh, so we have a case in a customer that they wanted not to show it there, and we need to do really black magic, which seems really simple, but it's not, especially because it's in older versions of XAF. So there is another thing that I want to show, and is that the there is like a property editor for date only properties, and this has been supported I think for a while. Even though I don't use it, I still use data even when I hate it before, like because you have all the part that you don't use about the time, like right. And so it's good sometimes to have like something more simple. So so here you have the date editor, and of course there is no time part. But when you save it, and for that I have this SQL Server here. Also in the databases using a date only property. So it's only the date here. So it's nice. And here we have the hidden property. And that's it for what is on the table. So the other thing that I wanted to show for this, let's move to Blazor. And JP have a really good observation that if you do browsable faults, you will not see it also in the model. So it can bring some counterproductive behavior if you use browsable. So not browsable anymore. We have a new attribute to use it. So let me run the Blazor application. And for this, I have a controller. And I will show you from my favorite one. So the one that I like the most from this new release is the error page that looks a lot like the error page on web forms. And you don't have to go to the console because one thing that I hate is that I don't use Chrome anymore. I use only Edge. And in Edge, even though you can do the debug, I mean, to see the console with F2, I believe, since Edge have a different keyboard layout, that option change all the time and it's always prompting you. Do you really want to show the developer tools if you press this key? So I hated that. You have to do it like millions of times. So right now, if you want to see the error page in here, this action executes a stupid, basically a DOM exception, invalid operation exception doesn't do anything actually. But if we do it here we have the exception. Let's continue. You will catch it first in the studio, and then the error page. Also, your application doesn't crash anymore. So it's also good. It's less scary for the user. So you see here that you have like invalid operation exception, what it happened. Everyone is really familiar with this type of information. So I will not stop there. Other thing that we have is the ways to create object space. Now there is an extension. Before this came from, there are several stages of this where I'm going to show you. First, before you can do application create object space, and there was not a requirement to pass the type. But the main problem is that if you have several object space providers, it was difficult to figure out which type, to which object space provider that type belongs. But for a while, I think they make this an exception or like a warning. So you need to pass the type after that, and you get the object space for that specific type, right? But from 24.2 and on, now you have a generic, so you don't have to pass the type of, which this looks, to be honest, really early 2000s. So this is the modern way. Let's use generics. So let's click here and create object space. So we have an object space here and we have an object space here. It's just syntactical sure, just a different way to write something. So not a big deal, but looks better. Looks better. And let's see. For this one, I need to stop. So let's stop here. And this one I kind of like. I remember when we met with Javier like 10 years ago, we have a conversation about magic strings. So that it's so easy to make a mistake in a criteria this like text. So now the static analyzers is showing that if you have a criteria that is created by text, you should actually do it by lambda or construct it by creating binary operator, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of like this because even though this is super practical, it most likely to lead to a mistake. So avoid magic strings. And now that I think about it, I don't know if I have ever written an article about magic strings, but if not, I have something new on my list. So that's everything for my side, Javier, from the things that I want to show from 24.
Oche, can you run the Blazor app just because we can show
Of
another
course.
quick thing? And open a couple tabs.
Okay, so admin. Okay, so let's
So,
see. We have two tabs, three tabs,
so
four
basically
tabs.
right now, yeah, remember we actually did a video about closing all tabs and so on. So if you
Mhm.
right click on one of the tabs, you should have this new
Ah,
context menu.
nice.
You can close all but this, close all. It's
Just
those
close
small
everything.
enhancement that, yeah, those small enhancement that I think that definitely make a, a lot of
They make a
difference.
difference for the people who use tabs. You should not use tabs. It is better to have a single window. That's my recommendation, my personal recommendation. But yeah, some people love tabs. Tabs. Some people like single window, but um, I think it's more comfortable for people who use a lot of data, like maybe accountants to have several tabs. It's kind of normal that they use that to do comparison of data. Yeah, so that's cool. It's like low hanging fruit.
Exactly. So let's now go over the blog or the actually the what's new on the DevExpress side. So of course, the .NET 9 support. Uh, just to be aware of the minimal supported version from Visual Studio 19 to .NET 8 to .NET Framework 4.62. Source Builder will release a video soon about using the Source Builder. I think that this is a nice tool that we should all learn how to use. Entity Framework Core 9 support, calculated fields, soft deletion. So we did a whole meetup on Entity Framework workarounds, and now a lot of things are coming out of the box. Filtering, date only and time only support. So Hoche talk about that. Updated on the XPO connection provider. We have now passkey on our authentication, so you can use your face, fingerprint, pins, and so on. Uh, Conditional appearance enhancement about that. For example, if the department has a conditional appearance that makes the name yellow when you use the employee that has a department reference and is expanded, that will also transfer to that one. Uh, of course, syntactic sugar about the customized view control with the static view item. You have the central package manager. I really like that one, and we did a video about having your DevExpress version in just one place that you can actually just change it once and it will apply to your whole solution. We Hoche show the hide in UI attribute, and this is one that I want to like just mention. The performance enhancement 24.2 came with a lot of performance enhancement. So I do believe that's one of the greatest thing that the DevExpress thing is putting a lot of effort is to like actually cut the time of rendering the grid, cut the time of rendering the UI, the tabs, the detail view. So that definitely will allows to have a more performance application. Besides that, we're responsible for our own design and so on. But if you can see here, the it's reduced the re-render of the view side control and layout components. The same thing on templates when we switch in tabs, the loading dialog, and so on. So it's a good. You can actually see both give running side by side and see the difference in speed. So definitely something to be grateful for. The grid listator for Blazor and WinForms supporting data view, server view, and instant feedback. The audit trail speed improvement, security, and you can see here all the benchmark that they're doing. So I think that those are things to look out for. Same thing with the image loading is faster, criteria evaluation is faster. This one is one of the most requested. A lot of people has been asking for the trilisator. We actually integrated our own control. We actually integrated trilisator from other third-party vendor, but right now it's coming out of the box and you can actually go and play with it. The new file data type property editor. So there is a new property editor for the file data, making it more user-friendly. And we show the error handling enhancement. I think that this is as always, like the closed tabs, something that it really makes sense. I think that breaking the application was not, as always, the most UI friendly choice here. the action URL, just to open an URL directly from your action, and you can have it as an inline action or a standalone action container. All day we show the close all but this, and close all of the tabs, so a few enhancements on the tabs. And the asynchronous API shortcut, we also did a video about it, so you can go and take a look in our channel, but I think that is also a really a straightforward API to invoke. And we are talking about a lot of AI lately. So if you check our channels, we're releasing AI example on XAF. Last meetup, I think that we show how to chat with your PDF, how to create criteria dynamically, and we just had a talk on the Net Live where we show how to create an invoice, how to create an appointment in the scheduler control, how to do it through chat and get the resources back. So we'll be doing a lot more of AI, so stay tuned for that one. Because XAF give us the frame, give us the way to create our apps fast and efficiently, and then we inject a little bit AI to make it extra crispy. All right, Hoch, I think that will be all for this meetup. We touched on the goodies of 24.2. You have here content of AI about Hoche in Hoche's blog and Hoche's YouTube, so follow him. We created a XAF app from scratch after a lot of years working with SAF. We got to get
Yeah,
it.
just like 17 years later.
That's it. As always, thanks for joining on every month. I always say I'm always amazed that you guys keep joining. So we really enjoy talking about XAF, talking about .NET, talking about AI. So we keep be here. We'll be here next month. And thanks for watching. See you next one.
See you.